y'all. Welcome back to another episode of More Than a Title. I'm your host, as usual, Jarrett Thomas. And once again, we're at More Than a Title, which is the show that we created because I want to know the person behind the title, right? We want to know the lessons and learn from those journeys and those experiences and give you something different from the old hey, this is just a marketing podcast and this is what you do. So I'm super excited about this. I have a special young guest, great guest, this young lady right next to me. So she's a leading voice in people's culture, futurist thinking, and is known for illuminating personality and experiential learning innovation. So she's currently serves as the CEO of two ventures. First, Unpacking, which shapes healthy workplace cultures for individuals and teams, and her real estate venture, Baldwin and Simone, is an experiential hotel design with travelers of color in mind. She's also a great niece of Jackie Robinson. Her award-winning work is not just a passion, but it's a legacy, and has received notable recognitions from Forbes, Beyonce, the NAACP, TechCrunch, and many other more. I'd like to introduce welcome our special guest, Kristina Ashley Williams. What's up, Queen?
Hi. So excited to be here and dive in today. Yeah. I just coming from a conference, so I've got like tons of things on my heart and my mind to talk about.
I love it. See, this is before we even start the conversation, I'll tell everybody listening. So me and Kristina first met in a regular sales conversation. I was working in the agency, but as you see her energy right now, as soon as I got on the phone call, I'm like, man, she is so dope, and she's different. I love everything that you stand for. I love what you're building, and I've got nieces, I got cousins, all that who look just like you, and I feel like learning your story is so impactful. So I'm just glad you took time out your day, Queen. And if you want, let's just start at the top. Let's just start at your background and how did you get into industry and what fueled some of your passions?
Yeah, I actually spent about over a decade, maybe 12, 13 years in the field of education, specifically as a director within the after school space. So I worked a lot with social emotional learning and cross-cultural education, financial literacy, all of the core life teachings that aren't necessarily like topics in the classroom, but are very important just to know how to navigate life. And so that's where I found my niche and my love for education. And in this period of time when I was living in the Bay, I was recognizing it was kind of like a tale of two cities, right? There was super rich techies moving into the community while people like myself, broke ass teachers, were getting displaced. And so what I recognized was like, yo, I want to live like them, right? Like, what are they doing over there? But there was a huge gap. I didn't have the language. I did not have the exposure to that industry growing up. I had no clue how to even enter it. And it seemed so unrealistic for me to find place and sense of belonging within that world. Yeah. And so I just took a radical bet on myself and risked it all. I quit my job, which was a highly coveted position within one of the nation's largest youth-serving organizations. I quit my doctorate degree, which was something I had worked my entire life to get to. But what I realized was, I don't want to just write and publish work. I want to be in the leading position to be doing the work and get the information that we're doing to the general public. And so I just took a huge bet on myself and went back to school after leaving my doctorate in education to get a second master's degree. And that led me to having a master's in teaching and social science from USC, and also a master's in integrated design technology and business. And so the way that Unpacking came about was I graduated at the top of May 2020. Right before George Floyd was murdered. And so we're in a pandemic. I'm graduating online in the bathroom while I'm brushing my teeth. And then right after George Floyd was murdered, we see this global uprising ensue. And it just so happened that I had expertise specifically in critical race studies with my master's in teaching social science. My foundation was in CRT. And then I also happen to have another master's degree now in design technology. And so I created an education technology to help society learn more about cross-cultural education through a gamified way.
That is so fire. Like, that is fire, Kristina. Like, that is fire. Like, what I took away from that, aside from, the amazing story and your educational journey and what you've been able to do and betting on yourself, but like the fact that you just took the leap of faith, right? Yeah. That's what's inspiring to me, right? Like, especially for our community, right? Like, a lot of people get like one thing people ask me is like, Jarrett, how are you so able to be so damn authentic online and stuff like that? How are you wearing the hat and the hoodie? I'm like, it's easier to be me than to be your ass. So it's like, for me, like, I gotta out the window and be myself. I can't give you anything else, right? So I would love to know from you, like, for anybody that's watching, for any, young Black women out there watching, like, what advice would you give to them for them to bet on themselves? Because it's crazy that you said that, because like that's my TED Talk is going to be about, is how to bet on yourself.
Oh, like, I love that topic. Yeah, I can't wait to watch.
I can't wait.
Okay, so couple of things. Arlen Hamilton always says, if you have to show up as you, so the people that are looking for you can find you.
Exactly.
Right? If you're faking the funk and you're trying to be something else or pretending to be something else, the folk that actually need to see you are going to miss you. And you also may miss opportunities that were meant for you because you were living in your truth. Yeah. Being able to bet on yourself, I think, comes from knowing what you've been able to show up as in the past. Remind yourself all you've survived thus far, right? Yeah. And also remind yourself that you have a unique vision. I like to do this analogy around wearing glasses. Jarrett, if you had a set of glasses that you were wearing, they would have a prescription in them for your particular eyesight because you were given a particular vision. Now, if I put your glasses on, I can't see that same vision in the same way, right? It's not my prescription. And so when I think about betting on myself, I always remember like, well, I was given a vision, and when we have a vision, God's going to give us the provisions to bring it to life. So like, we may not know how we're going to do X, Y, and Z, but we just have to keep taking that one step in front of the other and walking by faith in order to do so. I have a really recent anecdote that actually speaks beautifully to this concept, and just brought in some coins into the company because I took a bet on myself and believed in myself. You may have seen that we just won the speed pitch competition at the South by Southwest conference.
Oh, congrats.
In March, which is so lit. And the tea behind that is we were actually an alternate. Unpacking wasn't selected as a finalist. We were selected as an alternate, which means they had they had about like 12 categories or so, and they had about 5 finalists for each category, and then they had 3 alternates for each category. The alternates get a 1-minute pitch, and then the finalists get a 5-minute pitch. And the alternates are there in case one of the finalists don't show up, and also just so we have an opportunity to still like get our brand like in front of a big audience, because it's a huge conference and everything.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what ends up happening is, like I'm like, dang, like I'm an alternate, but it's cool. They gave us free tickets to the conference. Might as well like enjoy it like while I'm there, whatever. I'm gonna go in and give it what I got. We get there. We're going through rehearsals, and I'm recognizing a couple things during rehearsals already off the bat. People remember the 1-minute pitches a lot better than they are the 3-minute pitches. So 3-minute pitches are taking longer, right? And you've got like so many more to go through. And so I'm like, okay, that's low-key kind of an advantage. I'm seeing, okay. What also happened was I obviously have a very bubbly personality. I get up on stage, we're going through rehearsals, and we have coaches there. We have speaking judges. And the coaches are like, you may want to tone it down a bit. And that is something I've heard throughout my life and always stabs me in the heart. I'm like, Are you saying my personality is unprofessional? Right?
Right. That's my superpower. That's my
I'm like,
superpower.
but
I'm not doing it.
this is also what like brings me customers and brings me great friendships and what makes me memorable and all that jazz. But
Yeah.
that was my feedback. I'm like, okay, they're trying to get me to conform. I'm like, that ain't happening, but I'm gonna take what I can, get and see what I can mesh with it. So anyways, that's rehearsal. The next day is the pitch. Now we go up, I kill it, I win the pitch for the future of work category. What happens next is all of the alternates. So they have winners for the finalists and they have winners for the alternates.
Okay.
And then all of the other winners from the other categories and the other alternates have to compete against each other during the award ceremony. The finalists aren't competing during the award ceremony. This is just the way the South by Southwest had their ceremony set up. Only the alternates. So that meant me and the other alternates that won their categories got to go on stage in front of investors and media and customers on this big stage. And I won the finals for our speed pitch competition as well. So that means everyone in the audience that was there with the money saw me as the biggest winner. And so like when I went in at thinking like, oh, I'm an underdog, what God actually had planned for me was like, now hold up, girl. I got you. Just trust. And that ended up turning into a 6-figure investment because, well, thus far, I've got a couple other meetings coming up this week from that pitch as well, from other funds. But going in as an alternate, thinking this is just for shits and giggles or just for some like quick press or something, ended up turning into way more than I had thought it was going to. And it was a really great reminder that we don't always know what's planned for us, but when we're given a vision, we have to keep walking in faith for it.
Yeah, that glasses analogy was fire. I love that, right? And also what I loved about the story is your mindset, right? Because you're thinking about the first of all, you said I have a minute. They have 3 to 5 minutes, right? So somebody like most normal people would have been like, damn, I'm in a disadvantage. Like, I'm just gonna do whatever. Like, it is what it is. Like, I'm not gonna win this. What are the chances of me winning anyway? Right? Like, so it becomes that. But you thought about the glass half full instead of glass half empty, right? And most CEOs and entrepreneurs I speak to have that same mindset, right? So that's like just amazing to me that you were able to do that. Once again, congratulations. And I think it would be a great segue because you said you started it around the time, Unpacking, around the time George Floyd, right? So what was like the first step, right? Like, so if I'm trying to if I have a similar idea, like I don't have no funding, I got nobody in the bank, I got no rich uncle, my mom and them ain't got it. Like, what do I do? You know what I mean? What is the first step?
So, all those companies that were like, we stand in favor of Black Lives Matter. I went and researched all those lists and cold emailed all of them and was like, we can help you with those commitments you made. And so that's how we got our first customers. And then what ended up happening was we were really good. And so word of mouth just continued to carry about our program. And so in 2020, we were just getting off the ground, right? The curriculum was brand new and low-key bullshit, but we were like putting things together because like society's like, we need something right now. And I'm using all these like different third-party services. We're on like Teachable, we're on Miro, we're on Kahoot. And then what had happened was we applied to a grant from Beyonce, got that. We applied to Techstars, got that. We submitted a proposal to Salesforce, got that as a customer. And so now we had some funding and I was like, cool, let me take all of these cool features that I like on these other platforms and build out our own proprietary system. And so because I've been working with teenagers for so long, and that's my bread and butter, I speak teen fluently. I knew that if we were going to do anything with learning, it had to be experiential, it had to be gamified. And so I just applied those same concepts to adult learning. And so we built out Unpack. We were able to build our own platform in 2021 because of the funding that we now had. And that allowed us to create our own proprietary platform and scale out our curriculum. So throughout 2021, we've been running our anti-racism programming, and we've graduated over 400 alumni to date, both from team trainings, working with organizations, and also from individuals that are joining our public cohorts with peers from across the country and getting our certifications. And this has created a really awesome opportunity for us to validate our pricing, for us to validate the curriculum, for us to validate the technology, and iterate. Now we're in a position where we're going into phase 2 of the company. And in 2022, now we're transitioning from a training platform to a school for social good. And so if you think about Khan Academy, we are transforming into the Khan Academy for cultural competency, where you'll be able to take courses on anti-racism and LGBTQ inclusion, disability inclusion, gender inclusion, product inclusion, and sustainability. So we want, whenever you're thinking about anything related to social impact or diversity, equity, and inclusion, you have a go-to site that has gamified learning and cohorts that you actually get to interact with other people with as you go through our curriculum. And I'm super excited about this next phase. And also the beauty of patience that building this company has really taught. Like, what you think you're going to start off as continues to evolve as you're learning and you're in the field. And you have to be okay with testing, failing quickly, iterating, innovating. And it's just a really beautiful process. And there's like so much more that comes about over time than you originally have plans for when you first start.
Yeah. Oh man, that's so amazing. And for anyone listening, right? For those who are listening, right? One thing that you said that was amazing just now is the fact that, right, the George Floyd thing happened, right? Obviously, it was the talk. It was something that really impacted me as a Black man. I'm sure yourself too, Kristina. Like, but you said I'm gonna hold you accountable, fam. Y'all want to say y'all gonna do X, Y, Z? Nah. I'm here. What we gonna do, right? So I'm right here. These are my credentials, and this is what we're gonna do. And the fact, like, I'm curious to know, like, what are the different processes for each of those investors, right? So when you spoke to Beyonce's firm, right, it was very vastly different from Salesforce or the other investors, right? What is that process like?
Yeah. And so with Beyonce, she has a foundation called the Be Good Foundation, and they partnered with the NAACP to create a small business grant for Black-owned small businesses, and we were one of the lucky recipients of this grant. And so just being really diligent about applying to as many funding opportunities as possible, you're going to get no's and you're going to get yeses. For example, I just told you I just won the whole speed pitch at South by Southwest, but I also had just applied to another pitch competition at a huge ed tech company and got denied. I didn't even get selected. So it's like, you don't know like who's going to be reviewing or what the criteria is going to be. And it's like, you have to like put your name in as many hats as possible because it's a numbers game at the end of the day.
Absolutely.
Right?
Sales,
yeah. And then as far as investing goes, it's also something that takes a long time, and like you learn a lot in the process as well, because it's about finding your industry niche. It's about finding your cultural niche if you're looking for folk that also understand your identity and lived experience in the process. And it's also thinking outside of the box, right? So for example, we're an education technology company. However, we're servicing tons of different industries. We're serving the entertainment industry, the healthcare industry, the hospitality industry, the technology industry, etc. So like we can apply to many different funds that serve other specific industries, and we're able to say, hey, we're helping to improve business relations or organizational cultures within these ecosystems, and this is how we plan to do so. And so like, for example, we just got our investment from PMRC, a joint partnership with Penske Media Company that own Billboard, Rolling Stone, Hollywood Reporter, Variety, and they just bought South by Southwest. That wasn't part of the pitch competition. I just happened to have a big impression while I was on stage, and they sought after me afterwards and was like, hey, we really love your stage presence and your ability to, your storytelling ability. And we think you'd be a really great fit for our fund. And we want to improve these issues within our industry. And so it's a great pipeline. So it's just like being able to think like all of the different what's the pinwheel?
Yeah.
Like, all the different
right word. Yeah. But you're inspiring me right now by saying all this. Like Kristina, you are super dope. Like, so like what is my thing is like, if I was a CEO, if I had all this investment, right? One thing that would scare the hell out of me is like, where do I put the money? Right? Making the right decisions, right?
Yeah.
So what advice would you give to somebody else who may be in a similar situation that got grant money or that's got funding? Like, how do you make sure that you're putting the right partners in place, that you hire the right staff, that you go to the right developers for your tech, right?
Yeah.
Like, how do you vet all those things?
That's a really good thing. I think word of mouth is key. I'm seeing some really interesting plays as far as talent development, talent sharing, which I'll speak to right next. Cool. So as far as starting off a business, I'm not a technical founder. I am a visionary. Okay. I'm design, I'm creative, I'm business strategy. That's me, but like coding, not my jam. And also as a CEO, it doesn't have to be, it's not supposed to be. That's why you hire people. Like the CEO's job is to get money and to scale a business. Like my job is not to be sitting there and coding. If I were a technical founder, it would be, but that's not my ministry. So what I was able to do was bring on a development studio who I was actually familiar with. I knew them during grad school, and I was able to outsource not only the engineering, but like the project management that comes with the development studio. So they gave me a project manager, and they have engineers that are working on my product. And so they've been able to build out my whole beta product over this past year. And now I've got a fully functioning learning now I am a Black woman that owns learning management software. I am a Black woman that owns technology software.
Say one more time, Kristina. Say one more time. You're a Black woman.
I'm a Black woman that owns technology software, and that shit is lit. Like it's fire. Like
that's what I'm talking about.
If you would have asked me if that was going to be a truth of mine 5 years ago, 10 years ago, I'd have been like, "What are you talking about? That's not the world that I'm in." But it can be, and so outsourcing technology development when you're an earlier company is the way that I did it, and that I think is the most financially feasible if you're building out hardware or software. Because this is why, because salaries for one employee is over 6 figures. So are you going to hire one employee to do tons of work that's not realistic for that one employee to do? Or are you going to hire a development studio that comes with a team of people for the same price?
Makes sense to me.
Makes sense. Right? Like there's gives and takes around everything, of course, but like that's what makes the most sense as in the pre-seed stage. And when I first started fundraising, and I'm talking 2 years ago, so 2020, you would hear a lot of VCs saying some like old guard. Like when I say old guard, I mean like white stuff that's been passed down and like doesn't make sense for most access to resources, and especially if you're coming from marginalized demographics. Like just ask one of your buddies from school to what? No. So like when I first started, I used to be critiqued on like, well, why don't you have an internal tech team, or why don't you have a CTO, or and I'm like, you got CTO money? Because that's why I'm talking to you right now, so I can bring on those people. So but now I'm seeing a different conversation, and like people aren't like, now it's more normalized. So like just within the last 2 years, it's more normalized to be able to outsource your tech team as a viable.
Building in the house.
A lot of time on that. Sorry.
No, you're good.
Okay, so with that, and I can go over if you want, by the way, just
I'm cool too. I can go a couple. Got you.
So tech team outsourced. Now I'm in a position where I'm raising for our seed rounds. We've had pre-seed funding coming in thus far, meaning anything that's under $1 million, right? So we're getting check sizes that are like 100K, 150K, 200, 250K.
Yeah.
Now, when you get to your seed, you're not talking about 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe sometimes 5 million, depending on what sector you're in.
Yeah.
So the funding that we're raising now will be funding that we can bring on our internal team, our internal tech team. And I do have the funds to be able to pay salaries that are my thing is like, I want to make sure that I can guarantee at least 2 years salary for a hire. Like, I don't want to hire them knowing I can only pay them for 1 year. I want to already have it in the bank, and the revenue is going to just exceed what we already have in the bank. You know what I mean?
Yep. So true.
So that the other piece of advice around hiring, I would definitely say is hire contractors to do additional work. My dev studio contracted, but also additional employees, whether it's for marketing, whether it's for sales, operations, whatever you need, an assistant. There's tons of contract opportunities, but when you're thinking about even bringing on people full time, my biggest suggestion is doing quarterly contracts. So if you can have extended contracts, what have you. If you have contract workers and you have a 3-month contract with them, it's kind of a 3-month probationary period with them as well. It gives you time to see if they are meshing well with your organizational culture, if they're producing to the caliber that you want. And then at the end of that contract, you're able to be like, sayonara if they didn't fit what you were looking for, or you're able to be like, hey, we'd actually like to bring you on for a longer time. Like, we'd actually like to offer you this full-time role. And you've given yourself an opportunity to actually see how they show up without being in a longer-term commitment to them right off the bat, if that makes sense. I also feel the same way around getting co-founders. Like, if you don't already know the person, having people work with you first before just offering a co-founder position, because there's a lot of like legal ramifications if personalities aren't a good fit, and you need time just to like feel things out and also see how people, you can like them, but are they a good producer? Or they're a good producer, but do you like them? Right? There's there's different levels you have to consider.
Yeah. So I would love to know too, because like I said, like I'm getting inspired every time you say something. Like, real talk. I don't like to kiss butt or anything like that. Like, you're a real one. So like, when it comes down to it, like, where do you see yourself in 5 to 10 years, right? And also I want to know, like, what made you, or what gave you the courage to be your authentic self at all times, right? Like, because me and you are cut from that same cloth, right? It's like when I first met you, I thought the same thing. You were like, yo, what's up? I'm like, hey, what's up? I'm like, yo, this is dope. But like, where did you get that from, right? Was it like, well, was there a time where you couldn't be that and you were like, I'm just not doing that no more?
Right. Gosh, I mean, when a lot of the organizations were making the public statements around standing in solidarity with Black Lives Matter, a lot of their internal employees were like, no, you don't. And like, I really felt that, because throughout my career, but also just throughout my life, I have been policed because of my hair. I mean, I have at least 3 stories of supervisors asking me to change my hair at work.
Yeah. Yep. Same. I had to cut my hair. That's why I'm wearing the fitted now. I'm raised down my back. I'm like, oh, damn it. You know what I mean?
It's like, dang, for real? Or sexual harassment happening at work, but also these things happening at school too. Like, whether it's in undergrad or in grad school, I definitely felt out of place in my elementary and like middle school, and at points in high school as well, because of the different environments that I lived in. And I went to 3 high schools in 3 states. So again, influence on like why I'm such a cross-cultural education advocate, because I grew up being around a bunch of different cultures. And what I identified was that the experience of trying to not just talk or walk in a certain way, but identifying like what is belonging and like what is identity in different environments, because it changes just by the zip code that you're in, or like the room that you enter.
So
and so like when I think about where I'm at now as a 33-year-old woman, it's, am I going to keep trying to contort myself to fit into a box, or like, am I going to relieve myself of some anxiety and fullness? And it really took a lot of work through of anxiety and depression. It took a lot of like getting through it to recognize like, oh shoot, like my belonging is in me. Like I'm where I belong. It's not like I'm going to a certain place to find belonging. Like I am said place. And that was a really big like aha moment. And like sense of belonging has been something that I have struggled with for my whole life, like for sure. And so that we experience already, like as humans, especially if we're humans that are still healing from like childhood traumas and everything, on top of navigating a racist and sexist society, is like, dang, like how do I make space and find space and find safety? Like safety is that key word. And so I think a lot of the work that we do at Unpacking really goes back down to that at the end of the day, is like, I know my why. My why is that I unite a world of culture and belonging, period. So like anything that I'm doing, whether it is with a tech company, or you mentioned my hotel as well, culture and belonging, right? Designing for travelers of color to find a sense of belonging when they enter my space. So like I'm just really intentional right now around showing up as my fullest self, because I think honestly it makes other people feel comfortable. I've seen that consistently when I'm facilitating. I see people kind of like let their guards down and feel like they know it's okay to make errors and to try things, because they recognize that, or also because we explicitly say, like when we're norm setting, this is a call in culture. This is not a call out culture. We practice a call in culture. So if we're gonna make mistakes or ask questions or feel silly, this is the place to do this. This isn't cancel culture like out there in the real world. We're in a training for us to specifically have cross-cultural education. And so for a lot of us, the language is new. A lot of us, the topics maybe feel timid or uncomfortable. It's okay. So we create different norms to make sure that we know it's okay, but also create teachable moments, such as using a keyword like oops. Like if someone says something and it comes off that in a way that may have been interpreted offensively, or maybe is past language we don't really use into it, because it's changing every 2 days. We don't really use anymore. We have a community culture where we know if someone says a name oops, says the word oops, we're able to name that thing in real time, address it, and then move on, right? And who taught me, the people that taught me to live fully in my truth, in my attire, in my hair, right? And the aesthetic that I show up with, my nose piercing, and my hoop earrings I typically have on, are folk like Dr. Chris Emden, who is now at USC. He was at Columbia prior. Dr. David Stovall, Dr. Bettina Love. These were Dr. Gloria Latson-Billings. These were all educators that I was introduced to when I was first starting off my education career. And I saw them show up in Timberlands and in fitted hats and in t-shirts at these huge research conferences and things where we're around all these like suits and ties. And I'm like, dang, like you're a professor, like you're a doctor, like seeing that planted such strong seeds for me to know that like I was okay. Like it was okay to be me. And like, I didn't like, I was going to find a world that like I had to just keep showing up and be great.
That's it.
Like,
that's so real.
Because that carries more weight than anything else. Like, and I think there's a component there too. It's like you kind of create your privilege. Like I have a privilege in being able to show up in the attire that I show up in because I have a reputation for being a great speaker, for leaving people with actionable steps, and for them having memorable experiences when I'm there. So like this physical, like whatever, like facade isn't as thought about or like honed in on as how I make people feel at the end of the day.
Exactly.
Like that's like yeah, there's something around that belonging that I create for folk, and that enjoyable experience that I create for folk is what ends up lasting longer than them thinking like, dang, like she was kind of in a tight dress. Yeah, well, I'm Black and I have hips, so I don't know what to tell you. So
that's it, right? like what you said was so real. Like, and I'm gonna be honest with you, Kristina, that's why I do what I do. Right? Like it's the representation matters, right?
Yeah.
I've shared the story too. Like, but like when I came in the industry, I was straight from the Bronx, right? You know, I came in, I was doing mortgages, I was selling BBQ smelling like ribs. I was, you know what I mean? I was at Starbucks, I did everything, right? And then when my son was born, I got a way in. But when I got the way in, I had to be a specific way. I had to come in, I had to wear the same stuff I used to wear in Catholic school. I got baggy slacks on with Prada shoes. They looking at me, braids down my back. I'm like, okay. And you know, I come in, hey, what's up, Jarrett? Like, why you say what's up to me? Like that, you know what I mean?
I have the language changes. Like, what's up, my man's like.
Yeah, like, that wasn't the way you said it was all off, but okay, right? But like when I was young and thinking that, and I knew I always had the hustle, always had the drive, always had the vision, but there was nobody that looked like me higher up.
And that is hard,
Yeah, you know, you had to like. I used to think the Black professionals that were VPs and CEOs and CMOs, they were like the Black elite, right? You don't get there. You have to know somebody to know somebody, and you have to be related to their cousin and actually marry into the family, and then say what's up. It's like nah, it's not that, right? So me, I'm like, look, I failed for 8 years. I've done a lot of great things, but I've also hit rock bottom. You know what I mean? So like, if I'm gonna fail and hit rock bottom and be broke out here, I'm gonna do it like this. You know what I mean? And I got to show up as myself. And then when I started to do that, like you said, you fight through it. You fight through the imposter syndrome. You fight through does anybody care? Is anybody listening? There's days where nobody's listening. And you're like, holy crap, like it's not what's up. And then you get that one day where somebody from like Germany is like, yo, I listen to your shit every day, man. And I love it. And you know what? Or me and Hootsuite right now, like I go into the, you know, to the big, you know, calls with our team. I see people more hats. I see more hoodies. And I'm like, that's what I'm talking about.
Right.
So that's what
it gives when we show up as ourselves, it gives it gives others permission to show up as their selves as well. It's such a beautiful ripple effect. And that goes like across different spectrums. And whatever that display looks like, whatever their expression looks like. And it's really rewarding. And then it's like, if we're thinking too about like this virtual space when we're or in person, when we do that, like think about how much more comfortable and easier it is for us to learn and to like process things when we've taken this like stress layer and this like judgment like away. It's just like, okay, cool. Let's all just like be laid back in this space and focus on what we're here to focus on, that the stuff that like actually matters, because like the clothes down.
Exactly. And I'm telling you, it works. Like I show up in meetings like this. It could be a meeting with the CEO. I'm showing up like this, right? Because I know the value I'm going to bring in that meeting or whatever conversation we're having, and I don't have to second guess myself. And when you have that, it's just like,
not having to second guess.
You know what I mean? Like,
and also our language, right? So like, look, the code switching that occurs, and code switching happens in all sorts of forms, right? We code switch when we're talking to our parents compared to when we're talking to our friends, compared to we're talking to our boss, compared to we're talking to
partner, lover, or something like whatever.
Lover, you know, like there's different language that we have. There's different keywords that we're using. There's different influxes on our tone, and like Words have different meaning in different contexts as well, right? Like bitch maybe one thing in one setting and bitch maybe something else in another setting, right? Like it depends who you're talking to at what place and time. And like I'm really big on emphasizing like environment and like, because things carry different meaning, and they only have meaning because we give it meaning, right? Yeah. Everything is a symbol, whether it's a word or it is an inanimate object. Like they're symbols, and they only hold weight because we've placed value on it or taken value away from it as well.
So real. And then Kristina, I feel like I can talk to you forever. Like, and for everybody watching, I just want everybody to know this is like our second conversation, right? So if you understand like how we're so open like that, it just feels like old friends talking, because it's just two real people having a conversation. And this is exactly what I wanted to have the podcast for. And I just want to let you know, Kristina, like I'm rooting for you. I'm sure everybody who's heard this conversation is rooting for you. Like you are incredibly dope. Like I want to see you win. I want to see you on the Forbes, the entrepreneur magazines and all that. And you're gonna manifest it, but you're putting in the work. So that's what matters, you know. So thank you for taking time out your schedule, like just to rock with me and just to share game. And like I really appreciate it.
Absolutely, Jarrett. I appreciate you thinking of me and having me. And like one thing I want to leave everyone with is, you know, in that transition time for me of leaving education and entering tech, I was figuring things out, right? Like I told you, I quit my job, I quit school, all of that. I slept in my car for a couple of months while I was figuring shit out, y'all. And now I'm one of the 0.2% of Black women that have raised venture capital funding just a couple of years later. So like, don't be afraid of betting on yourself. Do it. You got it. You're not given a vision for you to sleep on it. You're supposed to die with your memories, not with your dreams. So like, go hard and just remember that people will believe in you and you believe in you. So I believe in you.
Oh man, that was bars. Dropped over some bars. But thank you so much, Kristina, and everybody who's watching all the comments. Thank you, y'all. You know I love y'all for free. Next, we actually got another one this week with Walter Gear for episode 5. So he's a bad brother. He's one of the biggest executive creative directors in the advertising space. So he's interviewed, you know, Mark Pritchard, CMO Procter & Gamble, you know, Gary V, you name him. And he's somebody that I aspire to be. So to have the brother come on and we're going to talk shop, we're going to be on IG, we're going to have some fun. So we'll see you guys Wednesday at 9:00. Kristina, once again, thank you so much, Queen. And yeah, I'm coming to the A too. So I got to holler at you. I'm moving to the A.
Please do.
Got lunch on me just off the love. And I appreciate you, all right?
Great
and
to
see you guys
Jarrett.
next week. And
bye, everybody.
Bye.
What you know about me? Seen it all, heard it all. Oh, what you know about me? I've done it all, just want it all. Oh, what you know about me? I seen it all, heard it all. Oh, what you know about me? Oh, what you know about me? Oh, what you know about me?